Everyone, and welcome back to our ellipse lessons. Today we are going to talk about completing the square to be able to put our ellipse back into standard form. Now, a reminder when it comes to standard form with our ellipse, it's always x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals 1. The key here is where is parameter a. If a squared is under the x, this is going to be a horizontal ellipse. That would put b squared then underneath the y. And then the vertical ellipse, again, is going to have the exact same starting format, except the a squared value then is underneath the y's, b squared is underneath the x's. And again, this is important because parameter a is the biggest in the ellipse and thus will dictate what is the major axis. Now we're able to find parameter c with our foci by taking c squared. That's always going to be equal to a squared minus b squared because again a is the biggest, so we can find b or c by subtracting from a squared. And again, the foci are always located on the major axis as well with our vertices that are coming from parameter a. The length of that major axis then is always 2 times parameter a. That would be the total length distance from just the center to one of the vertices is going to be just parameter a. And then the minor axis would be 2b. B would be this distance from your center to just one of our covertex. Now, when we need to get our equation into this standard form, we are going to start similar to when we complete the square with a circle, the x squared and y squared and any of their buddies all together on one side, and any constants on the other. Now from there, we are going to complete the square. So what we would do is you need to make sure you factor any a value not equal to 1 as a GCF so that we can make sure that our x squareds and our y squareds are 1 x squared and 1 y squared to make sure that they are able to actually be completed. And then we finish the process of completing the square from there. And then last but not least, when we get that final side, we want this to be equal to 1, so we end up dividing by the constant on the right-hand side so that we get our equation equals to 1, and then we will always reduce. So how this is going to look, okay, let's start by organizing. We have 9x squared and then plus 108x. Then we have 4y squared. We have 24y. This 216 will end up being subtracted to the other side, so it becomes negative. Now, before we can complete the square, what we're going to do first is take these GCFs out. So notice there's a 9 for both the x and the 9x squared and the 108. 108 divided by 9 is 12. Now we have a 1x squared. Now we'll actually be able to complete the square. And then with our y's, we have a GCF of a 4 that can be taken out. So we're going to want to do that. And then we have y squared plus 6y that we can now actually complete the square on. And then on the other side, we have negative 216. And we'll have 2 things that we add on here. So for the first part, as we start completing the square, we want to divide by 2 and square that value. We end up with 6 squared or 36 that we add in here. However, when we go to add to the other side, remember there's a 9 that officially would be distributed through this piece, right? Now we don't actually distribute it, we want it factored on the outside, but when we go to add to the other side, really what we're doing is adding 9 times 36 to the other side, so 324. Okay, and again, we're just getting that by multiplying. And then same thing over here. When we complete the square, we end up taking 6 divided by 2. That is 3. Squared is 9. But instead of just adding 9 to the other side, we have to add 4 times that, because again, it's like saying, hey, we're distributing this through. Really, 36 gets added. However, we don't want to write that on the left-hand side. So on the right-hand side, when we factor, we have 9, x plus 6 quantity squared, 4, y plus 3 quantity squared. And on the right-hand side, when we add our 3 pieces together, we get 144. Now, last but not least, we want to divide these pieces over because we always want this equal to 1. So if we divide everything by 144, the 9 and the 144 are going to reduce. We can take this value and reduce it so that 9 divided by 144 gets reduced to be, in this case, 1 over 16. And so we leave that as x plus 6 on the top, 16 on the bottom. And then we could take 4 divided by 144. Again, make sure we reduce it. We get 1 over 36, so y plus 3 squared all over 36 equals 1. So now we have our equation, and we can start filling out our other pieces because we have a squared is 36. A is just going to be 6. And then that means our center, if we look at this, is going to be at -6, -3. So we plot, we have -6, -3. The A value is under the Y's, so we're going to count up and down 6 units to get our 2 vertices. And then our B squared value is 16, that's under the X's. B then would be the square root of that, which is 4. So we're going to plot to the right and the left 4 units. So we have our little ellipse. And again, we know that our vertices on the major axis, again, we're at -6, 3, and -6, -9. These co-vertices are at -10, -3, and -2, -3. Now, last but not least, to get our foci, remember c squared equals our a squared value minus our b squared value. So in this case, that's going to come out to be 20, or the square root of that, actually, which is about 4.5. So 4.5 units up, 4.5 units down from our center. So we could say -6, comma, -3, plus or minus, if we're being a little lazy, square root of 20, because we're going up square root of 20 or down square root of 20. Now on the next page, we see another example not in our standard form. So again, we want to start, this time we have 9x squared, and then we have 49y squared plus 98y, and then we're going to add over that 392 to the other side. Now this time, notice we're actually only going to complete the squares on the y's because there is just an x squared, there's no b value with it. And we do need to start, however, by factoring out that GCF from the y squared and y, so that we end up with y squared plus 2y. And then this time the 392 is only going to have one thing added to it because we're only completing the square on one piece. So divide by 2 and square, we are adding 1 into that blank, which again, if you think about, hey, if I distributed this through, that would really be 49 on the right-hand side. As 49 times 1 is 49. So we end up with 9x squared still. And then when we factor, y plus 1 quantity squared is our factor. Add together 392 plus 49, we get 441. Last but not least, divide all of these pieces by 441 and reduce. 9 divided by 441 simplifies to be 1 over 49. So we end up with x squared over 49. 49 over 441 is going to simplify to be 1 over 9, and then that's going to equal 1. So we see here, again, our equation. And from here, we have our a squared value this time is 49, which means a is 7. So as we start plotting this time, our center is at 0, -1. And then underneath the x's come the a value. So to the right, 7, and to the left, 7. For our vertices, that would put them at -7, 0, and 7, 0. Oh, sorry, 7, -1. Excuse me. On each of these. And then our b squared value this time is going to be 9. So b is 3. That's coming underneath the y, so we're going to move up and we're going to move down b units. So we can see kind of our little shape of our ellipse. And if you're going 3 units up or down, you'd be at 0, 2, and 0, -4. All right, last but not least, c squared this time is going to be found by taking our a squared minus our b squared. So we get the square root of 40 as our c value, which is approximately 6.3. So as we go to plot, you would go to the right about 6.3, to the left about 6.3. So we're taking that x value of 0, and we are either adding or subtracting square root of 40 to it, still at the y value of -1. All right, one last quick example of completing the square then, just to finish this out without the graphing piece. Again, always make sure you group these together to start, okay, whenever you have these pieces. We have the 4y squared, and then the 61 gets moved over. GCF this first part of 36, we end up with just x squared, and then -108 divided by 36 is -3. That will be completing the square part 1. Then we have a 4 to take out. We should have y squared minus 4y that we're completing the square on. Now, reminder on this side, the -61 will get 2 blanks added to it. On the right-hand side, be very careful. When we divide 3 by 2, or I guess in this case -3, by 2, and we square that value, we actually get this lovely decimal. Oops, no, -1.5 squared is 2.25. But reminder, when we add to the other side, you really are adding 36 times that. So a total of 81 will get added over here. And divide this value by 2 and square it, we end up adding +4. But again, if you think about distributing through, that would really be a 16 that gets added to the other side. Now, reminder, when we factor here, okay, it's the value we got when we divided by 2, so 1.5. And -1.5 and -1.5 would multiply to be 2.25, add to be -3. And then on this side, we'd have the y minus 2. -61 plus 81 plus 16 is 36. And then last but not least, when we divide over that 36, okay, notice these cancel out. So you could either write 1, or you can just leave it as x minus 1.5 quantity squared. 4 over 36 reduces to be 1 over 9, and then that will just equal 1. The last example will be for you to try. Thanks everyone for watching. More in class.